Senator, first I kind of wanted to start with this Monarch Energy deal that kind of brings you to town today. First off, can you just kind of like explain what you're trying to accomplish there and kind of what it would mean for Northern Illinois?
Well, what it would mean for Northern Illinois and this area in particular is about $1 billion in investments. It would be the creation of a factory or a plant that would take landfill waste and convert it into hydrogen power and also sustainable aviation fuel. So it's really about leading on the green energy revolution for the future, both making us more sustainable, weaning us off of traditional petroleum products, but then also helping us get rid of all of that landfill waste. And it would mean just from Monarch itself, between around 400 good-paying, solid, long-term jobs. If we're able to do this, then it would become a magnet for other industries to come and be located here because they would use the hydrogen fuel that Monarch would be producing for their factories.
I know a lot of people are always wondering about the landfill. What are you going to do with all that waste eventually? That's a big question we get from people, especially that live in the New Milford area and around the landfill there. So how big would that be for the people, especially that live close to that?
It would be significant because we would be getting rid of the landfill. For once, we would turn the landfill into something valuable, which is we would be producing energy out of that landfill waste. So we would be reducing the landfill, and we would actually turn it into a resource in order to fuel the future, but then also in a way that is green and renewable.
How close is this to being a done deal?
So it's very close right now. What I learned today was why I wanted to sit down with the mayors and the county executives in the four-county area, but also with Monarch Energy itself, is looking at what federal regulations are in the way. And one of the things that's happening right now is there's a federal rulemaking that says that if you want to build one of these hydrogen power plants and you use renewable energy, say from nuclear or wind power, you get a certain percentage tax credit, except that they're saying that the windmills and the nuclear plant had to have been built within the last 3 years, which is ridiculous because we haven't had a new nuclear power plant be built in the last 3 years. And then also, Illinois has been the leader in wind energy. And so it's very unfair to penalize us because we've had wind energy for over 10 years and reward states like Texas that are just now putting up their wind energy. So I've got my marching orders from Mayor McNamara. I got my marching orders from the county executives and from the Monarch Energy folks to go back to Washington and really push the Department of Energy and the Treasury to say, hey, you can't penalize a region like Northern Illinois and for doing the right thing all this time by having nuclear, by having wind power, and we are able to lead this effort. And so we can get that done. The deal could be done. You would be producing energy within the next 3 years.
Okay, so is that kind of the timeline you're hoping to get this thing up and running in the next 3 years?
Yeah, well, but the jobs would start before then because there would be good construction jobs building the facilities. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be big for years to come here.
Yes.
Then obviously. I guess you mentioned the water supply here too. Why does that play such a big role?
Well, abundant water resource is really important as a cooling element in many of these energy production facilities. But it's also important in other areas as well, not just with Monarch Energy. I'll give you an example. I had a long conversation with folks who are chip manufacturers, and they're looking at where in the country do you build new factories to build new chips thanks to the President's Inflation Reduction Act. Where we have created this marketplace to produce chips. Your car, the average car has 3,000 to 4,000 chips in it. It's not just about the most high-tech chips, but you have chips in your watch, you have chips in your phone, in your camera here. But you need a lot of water for that. And so, when these companies are looking to go to Arizona, I was like, well, how's that going to work out for you? There's no water there. We have a plentiful water supply. And the Four Rivers organization here is really uniquely positioned to help provide that water as a renewable resource for these facilities that use the water, for example, as a cooling mechanism for their energy production.
And from what I understand, this facility would be located near the airport?
It would be, yes, it would be near the airport because it would be producing sustainable aviation fuel, which is a fuel that's not based on petroleum products for aviation, so it would make perfect sense for it to be near Rockford Airport.
How important is that to just get that kind of sustainable aviation fuel? Because I know that's kind of a push these days to try and see more of those sustainable fuels, whether it's EVs or the airline fuel.
Oh, very much. Very important. In fact, United Airlines has has declared that they want to lead on sustainable aviation fuel. And even airlines from other countries, for example, All Nippon Airlines, which is a Japanese airline, it's a partner airline with United. They have committed as an airline to becoming 100% sustainable aviation fuel for all flights leaving the United States by a certain point in time. And so all of these airlines have made these commitments. Somebody's going to provide that fuel. Let's make sure that it comes out of Rockford.
We've seen a lot of airline industry headlines recently, not in a positive light, with the Boeing problems and things like that. What's your kind of thoughts on what kind of solutions there need to be? Does there need to be more oversight on the industry, on safety regulations? What's kind of your perspective there?
Well, I am providing that oversight. I'm actually chairwoman of the aviation subcommittee, and I was able to stop I was able to stop Boeing from asking the FAA for a special exemption, a safety exemption that they wanted in order to put an aircraft into service that actually had a fault with the engine anti-ice system. And so I was able to prevent that from happening. I will continue to provide oversight. I am planning on holding more hearings to make sure that we keep aviation, especially commercial aviation in this country, safe for the flying public. But I want to tell you that Rockford and Rockford Airport is uniquely positioned to help us with that. You have AAR, which is a maintenance repair operation that's based out of Rockford International Airport. So I will be working to make sure that when our airlines, when they have their airplanes and they need like the landing gear replaced or they need, component replaced, a lot of airlines are now starting to go overseas. They're looking to go to Brazil or other places to have that work done. It should be done here in the United States. It shouldn't be going overseas. And so I'm working very hard to support MROs like AAR at Rockford so that we bring that work and keep it in the U.S. Where the workforce is well trained, where we're going to be up to standards, and to keep our aircraft for our commercial airliners safe for our flying public.
Do you think the public is hesitant at all to fly right now, or think they should be, or you think these are just kind of outliers, but they should keep them in mind?
No, I think flying is safe in this country. It is extremely safe, and I'm going to work very hard to make sure that it stays that way. But it means that we have to provide oversight. I'm really pleased that President Biden was able to nominate and get confirmed the FAA administrator, Administrator Whitaker. We hadn't had an FAA administrator in over 3 years. And so getting a head of the FAA into place was really critically important so that FAA can provide that oversight that's needed. And then Congress stepping forward. I just became chairwoman of the aviation subcommittee just about a year and a half ago. Before me, it wasn't a pilot. I'm a pilot. I'm a commercial pilot. I'm a military pilot, but also a commercial and private pilot myself. And so having me as the chairwoman of the committee, someone who is a pilot who understands aviation, understands maintenance, I think is helping us to push the Senate to provide greater oversight in a way that somebody who doesn't have an aviation background couldn't provide.
Another hot button topic this election season, reproductive rights. We saw what just happened in Arizona, IVF in Alabama. Just what does this country need to do to make sure women have access to the health care that they need?
Yeah. So it's women, but it's also families, right? Because if a woman can't have access to IVF to start a family, that means their husband can't be a father either. So it's about families who want to start families. What's happened in this country is that when Donald Trump put into place Supreme Court justices that were sworn to overturn Roe v. Wade, and we had the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it opened the door, the floodgates, for states making their own decisions about when life begins. And so a lot of states have declared, like Alabama, that a fertilized egg, the minute it's fertilized, is a human being, is a human child. I think the term that they used was extrauterine child. Well, that's a problem. Because IVF, for example, when I went through IVF after 10 years of infertility struggles after my military service, we created 5 fertilized eggs. 3 of those eggs were found to be non-viable. So that if my doctor had implanted those eggs in me, it would have caused a miscarriage. So we discarded those 3 non-viable fertilized eggs. Well, in many states now where you declare that a fertilized egg is a human being, that could be manslaughter. My doctor could be charged with manslaughter or murder. And in Alabama, their Supreme Court said that in fact is potentially manslaughter. They passed a law later on to say, oh, well, we just won't prosecute you, but we're not going to deny that would be manslaughter. In Louisiana, there's a law in the books right now that you can't discard those fertilized eggs, even if they're not viable, even if they would never grow and they would cause a miscarriage. So now those families are stuck paying to store those fertilized eggs. And you have in many of these states where doctors are leaving the states. Now, it's good for Illinois because they're coming here to Illinois where people have access to reproductive health care and reproductive choice. So it's more than just about abortion. It's about actually people trying to start families. It's why I wrote a piece of legislation, that basically calls for establishing a federal statute for the right to access reproductive technology, so that if you want to use IVF, if you want to use fertility treatments, you have the right to do that. And a doctor should be able to offer it if they want to offer it. They don't have to, but if they want to do it, they can, and insurance companies should be able to cover it if they want to. Because there's a lot of families who struggle very hard, I know because I went through it, to try to start a family. So I wouldn't have my 2 beautiful daughters were it not for IVF.
Yeah, something close to your heart then.
Yeah.
Want to touch on education real quick? You're going to be meeting with some of the schools, the Rockford Public Schools, right? Rock Valley College, Rockford University. What do you want to, I guess, what's your message to them, or what are you meeting with them about today?
Well, I am meeting with them to announce that I am providing them with some grant money. So we have congressionally directed spending, which is each senator's office can request money for different projects, whether it's refurbishing a maternity ward at the hospital or a infrastructure project to help build a new bridge. I decided to provide a lot of request that funding for the Rockford Public Schools. So we're going to be announcing several grants that they're receiving, but then also really good news, Rock Valley College. I just got the call from the Department of Labor secretary to tell me that Rock Valley College just received $5.5 million for their workforce development in a grant. And so it's all going to be good news. And you'll see lots of smiles at my next event where there's a lot of education dollars coming right here to Rockford. I'm really pleased that I was able to fight for those. And those were at my discretion.
Yeah, how important is that for this region? I mean, RPS, they've kind of struggled in terms of reaching state averages and testing, things like that. And this workforce development program, I know, has been wildly successful with Rock Valley College. So this is money that'll go towards a good use, right? It
will go towards very good use. It will go towards growing the workforce, training the workforce. And that's why companies like Monarch is looking here, because you can't build these facilities without a trained workforce and a disciplined workforce. And we have that human resource, those people here in this region who can do that. And so we need to make those investments in our children so that they know that they can get the training that they need. And people who want to go back to community college, go back to school, who maybe are working some other jobs, and they want to go back and get the training so that they can take on some of these high-paying jobs, that they will be able to do that. And I'm just really pleased that I was able to secure the federal dollars to be brought back here to help provide that training.
And finally, Senator, it's been a tough couple weeks in Rockford, a couple senseless acts of violence that have taken the lives of from young to old. Mental health's a big topic, especially in one of the cases. What do you think needs to be done in terms of the mental health crisis in not just here, but in the country in general? Because we're seeing death by suicide a lot as well with young people. I mean, what needs to be done in terms of the mental health crisis?
Well, we have a real mental health crisis among our young people, especially with the Gen Alpha and Gen Z folks, the folks who are still in elementary and high school. We don't have enough mental health counselors in our public schools at all grade levels so that our children can get the mental health support that they need. I've worked for a long time on post-traumatic stress to make sure that we have mental health support services for our veterans. But overall, within our community, there is a shortage of mental health providers, trained counselors, trained psychiatrists, trained psychologists. So we need to make those investments at the national level. And that is something that I'm pushing really hard on all aspects of the government to provide those funding to the local schools that can help us train that next generation of counselors, because we simply don't have enough. And there is, since COVID in particular, a real rise in mental health challenges, especially among young people. And we need to meet that need. Otherwise, we're going to be confronted with more and more cases well into the future, and we certainly don't want that happening again. And I just want to say thank you to Mayor McNamara. When the stabbings happened, I reached out to him right away, and he was very, very, very responsive. And that partnership between the mayor and my office and me and all the local mayors is critically important in making sure we get the resources back into the community.
Big for sure. All right, Senator, I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.